A book and a bear.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of A Book and a Bev.
Woo!
I'm Briony,
Georgia, Ellie,
Claire.
and this week we are reading The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by VE Schwab. I want to say Schwab.
Schwab. Rolls off the tongue.
The book was published in 2020. The book follows the story of a girl who doesn't read the terms and conditions and makes a deal with a god in the dark. And then she gets sucker punched with the deal because she can live forever, but no one can remember her.
Dun, dun, dun.
Which is real bummer. Real bummer. It's not
Really
what we
puts a
want.
damper on your whole life situation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just a touch.
So what are we drinking this week, guys?
Well, Briony, thank you for asking.
I am drinking.
Professional.
I'm drinking gin, some Adelaide gin. I was going to say Australia, but it is in Australia, but it's just Adelaide. Adelaide gin and lemonade because it's invisible. You see what I'm going with here? Tee-hee. She's funny. Yes. That's what I'm drinking.
Oh, delish.
I am channeling Addie and Luck, and I'm drinking
Hang on.
champagne.
Have you called him Luck? Because I've been referring to him as Luke in my head the entire time.
I've had luck the whole time.
Oh God.
It's loose, like Lucifer. It's loose.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that makes sense
Oh, we've
too.
all got different names.
Oh fuck! What are we doing, Claire? What did you refer to him as?
Luke.
Tiebreaker.
Luke.
Ooh, unexpected. This is going to be
Oh.
great. But either way, I'm drinking Jane's, some
Jane's.
Tasmanian bubbles.
Champagne.
This is not going
That's
to
a
end
nice
well. Bryony doesn't do well with champagne drunk, so R.I.P. me.
Well, I'm doing the same as you. I'm on the champers tonight as well, and I know she's into French champagne in the book, but your gal's on a budget right now after Christmas, and I drank all of my French champagne on New Year's Eve, so I'm on the cheap shit, and this could end very badly because
Passion pop.
no, I'm on
Buffalo.
Yellow Glen.
Oh,
Is that
yeah,
what it's called? Yellow Glen, $9.99.
Nice.
R.I.P. indeed.
I mean, quickly talking about the French champagne that they drank in the book, I looked it up because I was curious, and it can be up to $3,000 a bottle.
What were they drinking?
This was one towards the
Fucking
end.
God's piss by the seventh
like
age.
Dom Perignon?
Oh, Dom Perignon. Yeah,
Oh
yeah, that was
1965
expensive.
or something one. Yeah, it's about $3,000 a bottle.
Yeah, that's
So,
out of my price
I'll
range.
just cut off one of my limbs and sell it on the black market. That'll pay for that.
yeah.
That is twice the amount of money of my first car.
Well, I went the cheap route because I haven't been able to leave the house due to my dog. So
Mm.
I'm just drinking a gin and lemon lime thing because that's all I had.
Hey,
What your choices.
nice. It's alcohol. We're getting drunk. It's bad.
Exactly. I am not
Mhm.
getting
Oi.
that drunk.
Oh yes, that's right.
Rest in peace, Claire, from last time. She was not in a good way.
Oh no, she was not. Didn't you get banished to the couch?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. I mean, look, I didn't love the book. I found it quite hard to get into. And like, although overall I did enjoy the like storyline and the concept behind it all, it took me a solid 130 pages to get into it. Even with that though, I still like pushed myself to get parts through some of it. But once I got there, especially when Henry really came into it, that's actually when I started enjoying it and being like, okay, I can get into this. But I mean, yeah, it was a very hit or miss thing for me.
I agree in the sense that it did take me a while to get into it as well, because there was nothing really going for her in the present time until Henry kind of came along. Like, it was interesting, but I agree with you in that sense. For me, the book was definitely about power dynamics. It was about like what people are willing to do to stop themselves from feeling alone and feeling trapped. I definitely think that Henry, he was a little bit boring, but I still really liked him. And like, when I was envisioning his character, I was really cheering for him. Like, I was like, go Henry, go. But yeah, I think that in some ways the story actually lacked some substance, because I kept thinking, like, at the beginning of the book, like, she could have done so much more. She has spent 300 years or however long of her life, and like, we saw like a little bits and pieces that were really interesting that she did, but then they were just kind of sprinkled in there. There wasn't really a whole lot of depth in what she, and I was like,
she could have done so much with 300 years. She could have made such a difference to the world. And then there were some parts that were a little bit repetitive, but in saying that, you expect them to be repetitive because she's 300 years old. She's not going to be doing something different every single day, you know. I liked the book overall. I still rated, I think I rated it 4 stars. So I still really liked it, but it did take me a little while to get into it. I think that there were some parts of the book that the author could have gone into more detail about, which would have hooked me in more.
Yeah, feel that.
Feel that. I'm a big like VE Schwab fan, but this is like probably the softer of her books that I've read. But this book still like gets me right in the feels. It's very gut wrenching for me, and I love the way this author writes. Like, it's very, very pretty prose and very cinematic and just. But rereading it for this, what really had me going was actually Henry and his depression in it. That really had me just right in the feels. Addie and the choices she makes and all the things she does, I could kind of understand that, and I could appreciate her situation. I loved her being like an artist's muse throughout history and those little like breadcrumbs. But also, I don't know if I've been reading like Enemies to Lovers too much, but I was like all here for, again, we're going to debate how we say it. It's going to be luck for me. I'm so sorry, guys.
Oh dear.
But Henry's storm cloud, it just really, something about him, even though I do agree he's quite a vanilla character, something about him just really like got me in the feels this time.
Yeah, I was cheering for him, low-key, but I was just like, come on, Henry, you can do more. But I suppose that's the whole depression thing as well. Like, you know, that was
I also felt like he's not necessarily, even though he's the only person that remembers Addie, and that's basically the foundation of their relationship, is they're both giving each other something that no one else in the world can.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't think they're like necessarily a great love. Like, it's just
I agree.
It's just a gift. Like,
they're just each other's loophole, and that's about it.
And they give each other, they give each other something good, but it's not necessarily the world-ending cataclysmic love that we might be used to.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, I'm a bit with you, Claire. This book gave me some mixed feelings. It was pleasant enough to read, but I wasn't, gravitating to it. I felt the writing was very beautiful, and they had the moments of poetry throughout it, which I did enjoy, but I wasn't overly keen and excited to see what happens next. Even when they introduced Henry, I was a bit like, meh. And I was interested in the mental health side of things, but I felt like that wasn't really explored as much as it could have been, and that would have hooked me into him even more. But besides that, I felt that there was some really relatable moments in the writing, which I'll get into later, that grabbed my attention when she's talking about the life Addie wanted to escape from, which hit a bit too close to home there. I just felt like she could have done so much more. Like, she could have shown how, humanity effectively stays the same throughout the course of 300 years, despite all of these things happening. But effectively, Addie just traipsed around France and Italy and America. There were a few big things that the book didn't even touch on. Like, she's living in New Orleans in the middle of like high tide racism in America, and that's not even discussed. So there was just so much left out of that I think could have been focused on a bit more, or at all. But I actually kind of liked the ending. I know that's a bit controversial because some people really didn't, but I did like it. So.
Yeah, I liked it too. The book starts off, actually the first line is like one of my favorite, but this isn't even like a part of technically the first chapter, but the first line, a girl is running for her life. I was like, you got me. I was like, I was hooked from that book. I was like, yes, the girl is running for her life. Who is she running from? Why? Where? How? Like, tell me all the details.
I love a good opening line like that you're just like, oh,
yeah,
right away.
Jumps
tell me
right
more.
in. But that's not actually the first chapter anyway. But then the actual first chapter, she starts off and she's waking up in a stranger's bed, and you don't know obviously what the story is yet, but you know that she doesn't want him to wake up. She wants to just get out real quick. She ends up hovering around this person's place, find out this person is Toby. He's a musician, and she's obviously been spending the last few nights with him. I think that's what you gauge from the first chapter. But you're like, why is she trying to get out? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And then you start piecing it together, like, he's not going to remember. That's what she keeps saying. Like, and she ends up staying around anyway. She starts playing on his little piano, and then there's his cat. His cat is there, and she asks the question, like, does it remember me? And does it remember her? What do you guys think? That was my question. I was like, what do you guys think that the cat remembers?
Look, there's actually a lot of cats in this book.
Yeah.
There are a lot of cats, like cat and mouse game.
There's a whole lot of cats.
references.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and say the cat remembers.
Yeah,
Yes,
I agree.
love that.
Because remember they introduced Book, the cat in the bookshop,
Yeah.
and Book normally doesn't like people, but it likes her.
Granted, she does have like cat treats in her pocket. So
Yeah.
Does she? I didn't even think that.
He's like, oh my, like later when we meet Henry, he's like, oh my God, Book doesn't like anyone. And she's like, I have snacks.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes a lot of sense because I just figured the cat like read her soul and was like, no, we're kindred spirits. I love you. Not that he was eating treats. Okay, that makes more sense.
Bribery.
I'm with you.
Bribery, which is what I would do as well. But yes, we meet Addie and she's in Toby's apartment. And like you said, Georgia, she's going on about how she's dreading him waking up. I think the quote is because she spent weeks getting to know him and he has spent hours forgetting her, because as soon as you turn away, you forget it.
It's deep.
That's really hard.
What a way to
Just
live.
like, basically, like, you know, he thinks it's like some drunken one night stand. He's like, this isn't normally me. And she's like, oh no. And then we also get the first hints at how she can leave an imprint because she can't write her name. She can't say her name. And she can't touch or leave a mark anywhere, but she can give someone inspiration and they can follow through with an idea, and that's the only way she's figured out to leave her mark. So she's at the piano and she's playing a little thing and he's like, oh, that's really good. And she's like, oh yeah, you played me this song. But they'd actually been working on it together for weeks, and that just But throughout this book, it jumps between the current time period, which is 2014 in New York, and flashbacks to when she was first born, which is in France in the 1600s.
Oh yeah.
When we have our first flashback, we get our like background of her life. She lives in, I think it's like Villon, which is like a, you know, small town France. She's like the daughter of a carpenter type thing, and she wants to, you know, she's very much giving me Little Mermaid vibes, being like, I want to be where the people are. Like,
yes,
I want out.
Yeah.
I want to see the big wide world. But we also get our first introduction to the old gods as they were. Like, there's Catholic France, but we get this hint from this old woman who I really relate to called
I
Estelle.
love her.
I love Estelle. She's just like living in like a tree. Love it.
She is.
That there's as many old gods as there are questions. And the process of how you could ask anything of them, but you need to be humble. You need to give them something you care about. And she gives us like the main rule, which is do not ask, no matter how desperate or dire, do not call on the gods that answer after dark. Like, don't do it. It's a trap.
You fucking know she gonna do it.
We're getting these flashbacks to her history. She's also, in the meantime, drawing her ideal man. Like, people keep trying to marry her and she's avoiding it, but
I love that. She's just got so many suitors lined up and she's like, fuck you all.
And like, I love him one time, she's like, I prayed that this guy would like, his interest would be turned elsewhere, and then he died. And I was like, oh,
Jesus.
but while she's doing that, she's drawing her dream guy. Like, you know, she's looking at people and she's going, oh, that guy's got a good nose, that person's got this. And she makes her own dream guy that she imagines being the partner she really wants in life that doesn't exist.
Who are we picturing right now as her dream guy? I'm picturing Henry Cavill with green eyes.
I was about to say,
That's good. That's good.
like, Clark
That just might be me
Kent.
though.
Henry Cavill is Clark Kent specifically. But
Yes.
I don't imagine him being like as ripped. Like, I have a huge Henry Cavill crush, but not that ripped.
Yeah.
Not that ripped.
Like, yeah, Henry Cavill could literally break my back.
As we're getting all these flashbacks for Addie, it's like we're picking up, it's a very coming of age moment. You know, she's a bit naive and a bit hopeful, and she's just kind of wanting to do her own thing. And it kind of made me so sad because she's talking about how she wants to be free, and my heart was just like, oh, honey, sweet summer child.
Oh yeah. Well, this is where I get to my first relatable moment. Addie's describing her wonder and amazement of basically experiencing leaving her small town to go to the markets with her dad. And I've grown up in a that's a big glass, my love.
It was overflowing. I have bubbles everywhere.
Uh-oh.
Oops. I've grown up in a relatively small town, not that small, but smallish town as well. And I still remember being probably about the age Addie was, because I think she was about 7 when she went to the market with her dad for the first time. I remember being that age and going up to see my grandparents in town and just feeling so amazed that you could wake up in one's place and be somewhere else by the end of the day. Like, to me, that just didn't compute in my brain. It was such a magical moment. And I love how VE has just captured that in her writing. Like, she's really been able to convey that feeling of pure childlike wonder. It got me in the feels. I loved it. And it made me really relate to Addie and love her more.
That sense of wonder does follow Addie throughout her whole life. It's one of the things that luck is one of the things he goes, he doesn't know how to fight that, because she looks at every new thing and still has that sense of wonder.
I know. She never really grows out of it. It's a really special thing to have.
Then we literally get straight into like the next flashback, which is when she arranged to be married. She's like, hell fucking no. And
this guy's like wife dies while she's like in labor,
in childbirth,
and they go,
and
he needs a new wife.
Yeah, he's already got 3 kids as well. So she's like instantly stepmummy.
She's like, hell fucking no.
She gets told in the morning, and the whole day she's basically being prepared by her mum. And so that night they go to have the wedding ceremony at night.
Like a twilight ceremony.
Yeah, love the ambience. She's like, oh, I'm just gonna like run and get like my future husband a gift.
Yeah.
Nothing suspicious here. And then like jumps out a window.
Me.
Booked it.
Yeah, look, she's legging it. She's running for the hills. And I'm pretty sure this is 1714. So this is the timeline for you. So arranged marriages were definitely a thing.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, she basically is praying to the god. She's like, someone get me the fuck out of this situation. Help me, please. She's begging, she's praying. She's been praying like since she found out that this arranged marriage was
all day.
No one's answering. No one's answering her. And then we meet, I'm going to call him Luce, because she refers at the start, he's a dark being. He's like in the darkness, whatever.
He doesn't get a name for a while, but it's hard to say
the darkness. And she enters into a bargain with this dark being, or the devil himself, or Luce, or Luck, or Luke, or whoever the fuck you want to refer to him as. Basically, he grants her, as Briony said, grants her freedom in turn and granting her eternal life. But because he's a bastard, he also throws in the little downfall of being forgotten by everyone that she meets, and she's unable to do the simplest of things, like telling someone her name.
And she doesn't realize this at first.
No.
She's trying to negotiate, and he's going, well, like my payment is sold. Like, that's what I get from you at the end of the day. What are you going to give me? That's the incentive. And she thinks she's all that. And she's like, oh yeah, you can have my soul when I don't want it anymore. And he's like, that's a fucking great deal. Done. And she goes to go and see her parents. They don't remember her. She can't get in the house. They're like, who's this person? No one. As soon as they turn away from her, they've already forgotten that they even spoke with her.
Yeah.
God.
So literally they just walk out the room and it's like, nah, don't know who the fuck you are anymore.
I'd love to know like the time limit for that, like how soon, because one of the things in the book that aggravated me is when she meets certain characters who she ends up spending, a few days with, and they remember her over the span of days because they're constantly together. Does she not? Like, there is going to be a point in
holding this bladder
in a 24-hour period where you're going to have to go to the toilet and relieve yourself, and like that girl, bladder of steel,
UTIs galore.
She discovers that she might be stabbed, that she won't die. She could be starved.
True.
She won't die of hunger. She won't die from the cold. She can't die. She might get to the point and then maybe black out, but she will always come back. So goddamn, I hope she was never buried alive. She was close to it at one point, but imagine being buried alive and you just keep
waking up.
Although quickly, while we're on the sort of topic of before everything really starts to happen, Estelle said something to Addie about her freckles. She's like, you have 7 freckles on your face, 1 for every person that you would love. Do we actually know if it ended up being 7 people?
So if we do
let's count them.
We got Remy,
Or Toby.
Toby.
What about Sam?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's the painter girl. Henry. Luck.
That weird guy in Spain or Italy.
The
What's his
sculptor?
name?
The drawer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we got 6. Oh, James St. Clair. I mean, he's gay, but
She could still love him as a friend.
Yeah.
great love.
That's 7. Yeah, sure.
I'll take it.
Yeah, well,
Claire's onto it. She's figured it out.
She
She's
has.
cracking the code. We go back to Addie in New York in 2014, and we meet one of the 7 love interests that Addie has throughout her life. Well, I'm calling him a love interest, even though he's gay. It's fine. James St. Clair. And when she meets him, like they meet in a coffee shop, and it's really cute. And then they're having a great time, and he confesses that he's gay, but he's actually a movie star and he doesn't want to like the world to know yet. And she just plays along. So I love the thought of them like having like a Who magazine cover and her face is blurred, and she's had that little special moment in his life. But I just imagined it as like Timothy Chalamet. How do you say that?
No
Shalom.
idea.
No, Chalamet.
Shalebe? Timothy Shalebe.
Chalamet. Oh, or Harry Styles. You know, that vibe.
For sure.
Yeah, we meet Henry. Bless Henry. We meet Book. We love Book. So Henry works in a bookstore
Called The Last Word, which I love that name for a book.
Yeah.
That is good.
That is a good. That's cute. I liked Henry at the beginning because he just knew that something was off about her. She was wandering around, and she's so used to no one remembering her, so she's just stealing books. She's like, oh well, like, I'll just take this. And he's like, hey, what are you doing? Like, you're stealing that book. And she's like, what?
She's so thrown that she doesn't even realize for a minute he's remembered her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, just because you find out a little bit about Henry in this point as well, and you find out that Henry is pansexual, which is awesome because she just mentions so many like LGBTQ plus, like it's all in there, and I'm so here for it because like there's not a lot of books that have so many characters that are, and I think it's great. So that was just something that I noticed, and I was like, yes.
And it's not forced either. It's so natural in the story. It just flows so beautifully, and I fucking love it. I love Claire, your notes.
look, it's true. My note is that I was just honestly here for the cat. But at this point, I was just here to hear about the cat. I was here for it.
Oh yeah.
Don't blame you for that one. Don't blame you at all. We love a good animal in a part of a book. That's why we're here.
But that is every single girl's dream, isn't it? Walking into a bookstore and finding an attractive man who's single, who's a little bit flirty. Like,
I imagined the bookshop. There's a bookshop in France, funny enough, called Shakespeare & Co. And there were cats there. And it was one of those bookshops where like the walls are books, the doorways are books. Like it's just floor to ceiling.
Oh my gosh.
And that's all I was imagining, is that kind of like, how do you even find a book? Because there's not really any order, but it's just everywhere. And also related to like, Henry's pan, Addie's bi. We love a bi queen.
That we do.
And we get, actually leading into that, the reason we know that Addie is bi is because we meet another love interest of hers, Sam, who is a female artist, and she's on the rooftop of this apartment building when she sees her, and that she's spent multiple times with her, because that's the thing, she spends multiple one-night stands because she can't have a relationship. The quote I've got that just like punches me in the gut and like rips my heart out and stomps on it is, so she longs for the mornings but she settles for the nights, and if it cannot be love, well then at least it's not lonely.
oh man.
I love her love interests though, like all of them.
I honestly I prefer all of them over Henry.
Fair.
I just love how the darkness, aka I'm going to say Luke, told her that she had a type. Most of the men she chose, and even a few of the women, look a lot like him with the dark features and green eyes, and I'm just like, oh, maybe that's a sign.
Literally, like her only constant throughout her entire life is
Him.
Yep.
Loosh. I call him Loosh because, sorry, fuck, now I'm getting confused. Loose. Loose because Lucifer, that's what she refers to. She refers to Lucifer. It's loose. It makes sense in my brain. Whoever it is, whoever you refer to him as, yeah. Like I think that I preferred him over everyone because of my enemies to lovers thing. That's why. So
So obviously the next part, it heads into another flashback of Paris, the early 1700s, and at one point Addie is trying to get this room she finds this place and she pays a week's worth up front, which obviously is an issue because everyone forgets her.
Just loses money.
It's sad, really. But then she asks for a receipt and the lady's like, what sort of business do you think I run? Like, she gets so offended.
Like, mate, I'm cursed by the devil. You can never get me. I need a receipt.
But yeah, so she can't get a receipt. She goes into the bedroom, whatever. And then the next morning, she gets found by the security guards and this lady being like, you've broken in, like, what are you doing here? And there was a specific quote that sort of perked my ears. Well, I mean, my eyes, I guess. When Addie tries to get a room and gets caught, blah, 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 blah. The woman says, don't lie, girl, and sucks her teeth. What is with us, like, books we read?
Why do we find this?
Why is everyone sucking their teeth?
How do you do that, first of all?
While Addie is just suffering in France, you know, first she can't get a room, she loses her money, then she's got to fucking find a way to get money, and, well, she sells her virginity because she can't get a job, she's lost her money, no one remembers her, and that's just awful. That's just not great. She vomits afterwards. Fair. And then she freezes to almost death, but she can't die. And then she wakes up in a burial, like she's climbing out, and then she realizes she's not climbing out of sacks of like grain, dead bodies.
Oh God, how awful!
Like, she's having a rough time.
She's really is. That's not a great way to start immortality, is it? So we end up back in her hometown again, and another relatable moment that hits a little bit too close to home here. So there's a quote where she has just seen her friend, like her childhood friend, and obviously she doesn't remember who she is or anything along those lines. But Addie goes, they used to dream together, but she is aged 10 years in two, it seems. She's always tired, and there are hollows in her face where once her cheeks were red from laughter.
Well, that's depressing.
And if that doesn't sum up early stages of motherhood, I don't know what will. So excuse me while I go put some cooling eye masks on because triggered.
Back in like present day, Addie, our sneaky little sausage, goes, oh, well, I was caught stealing the book, but I'll try and return it because he won't remember me and I'll just swap it for another one. And that's how we discovered that Henry actually remembers her. He's the only person in near 300 years that remembers her. The fuck? She asked to like buy him a coffee as an apology, and he's like, okay. But all this time, she's making comments that like when he looks at her, there's a look on his face, but then it disappears and she can't figure out what it is. But he agrees to go out and get a coffee with her, and then realizes like she has no money, so she buys him a coffee, but she can't buy herself a coffee, so he buys her a hot chocolate.
The person who doesn't drink coffee is like, yes, the hot chocolate.
She's like doing a Q&A, and I mean, he's playing along, but we know that he's also trying to figure out what the fuck is happening because she's not reacting how he's used to. They're both trying to act like they're not freaking out,
but everyone's freaking out.
And he's like, oh, what do you see when you look at me? And I love this bitch because she just goes for the jugular. Like, you could just be like, oh, you know, you're handsome, you look really smart, you look like, you know. She's like, I see someone who cares perhaps too much, who feels too much. I see someone lost and hungry, the kind of person who feels like they're wasting away in a world full of food because they can't decide what they want. Just RIP me. Please wear black to my funeral.
Honestly, this is probably where I actually started enjoying the book from here on out. Something's happening.
Something interesting.
Something is going on. The first new thing to really happen to her in 300 years.
But like, she was afraid that even though this flu could happen, she couldn't say goodbye because she wanted it to keep coming. She wanted someone to keep remembering her, and she's scared that it wouldn't happen. So she's like holding on, and he's just there, just like, what the fuck?
Literally, the next bit is where our debate comes in over what the fuck this guy's name is, because we have this flashback to Paris in like 1719, and like Addie's managed to con her way into like some rich person's house, and she's using their clothes and their makeup, and our man in darkness appears, and as she's putting on makeup, he's like, I would rather see the clouds blot out the stars. So like, okay, calm down. Women can wear makeup for their selves. It's not just for the male gaze, but okay.
Literally. Yeah, this is where
I started really liking him as a character. I was like, nice. It's the enemies to lovers. I'm like, oh shit, he's going to turn out. In my brain, I was like, he's going to turn out to be the good guy, you know, because that's what happens. Usually they start off as enemies and they turn into lovers. I'm like, he's going to be the good guy. I just know it. So I was like, but I realized by the end of the book why the author did that, because like abusers can be charming, they can be intriguing, they can be romanticized characteristics, and they can still be the abusers. And that's exactly what he was. It draws you in. This is similar to one of the other books that we're going to be talking about in the future, is they draw you in and then they show all the red flags and you still want to see the best in them, and you shouldn't. That's how I was in this book. I was like, stop it, Georgia. These are red flags. Just use your brain. Avoid. But then no, she's like, oh, it's fine.
So the devil appears and takes her to dinner.
That's it. Yeah. I'm vibing it. I'm like, oh shit. Okay, the tension is.
I was vibing it.
I'm all here for it.
Look, I know this guy is toxic, but I'm also like, she's watching him, and it's the first time they've actually spent more than like 3 seconds together, and he's letting her, and I don't know why, but that I was like, oh shit. Oh,
it's like the whole hair is clean situation. It's like, oh shit.
That's right.
A bare minimum.
Bare minimum.
Oh shit. But she asks him if he has a name, and he's like, do I have to have one? She's like, well, if I'm going to call you anything. And then he goes, oh, what would you have called your mystery man? And she's thinking of it, and this is where our debate comes in, because we all call it something different.
Claire and I are on the same page.
It's really just you guys.
I feel like Georgia's makes the most sense.
It does.
It does.
Georgia uses her brain cells, the minimum that she has, and she puts them into this stuff. Georgia.
Did you get luck from, Briony?
Look, I was like, there's no K on the end, but we've got the other 3 letters. I'm going to start my Briony equivalent of the Georgia playlist of things that should not turn me on but do. And it's the Addie is saying, you think of yourself as a cat, which again, cats, playing with its catch, but I'm not a mouse and I will not be a meal. And Luke goes, I do hope not. It's been so long since I had a challenge. And I don't know why, but I was like,
I feel that. Yeah, I could get around that.
I can work with this.
I could add that to my mini series. Yeah, I could.
So this is in direct comparison to Henry, who compares his last relationship with, what was her name? Tabitha?
I want to say Tabitha.
Tabitha.
I keep thinking of Vanessa, but she's the coffee girl.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That burned shit in the sink.
Oh my gosh, the crazy reference.
That's right. No, Tabitha, where he's like, we were together for 2 years and never had a single fight. And it's like, well, that's not good.
That's boring.
That's not good. If I had to choose someone who I had passion with and wanted to fight and get into it with, perhaps not the abusiveness, I'd take that any day of the week over like the nice.
I really had like rose-colored glasses on, because it's definitely abusive and toxic. But I definitely was like, oh my God, it's this God that wants this little mortal, and like it's fine. Not even seeing what else is happening. Just
literally, I so feel that. It's me with like every single enemies to lovers book. I'm like, no, there's no toxic traits. It's amazing. They love each other.
Then we meet another one of Addie's great loves, Remy, which just fun fact, there is actually a Remy Laurent who lived from 1692 in France on Ancestry.com. And he had a wife called Anne.
Jesus Christ. Briony, you have too much spare time on your hands, darling.
I see you. Love your work, babe. But also, like, again, I love VE. I love her opening lines. She's just beautiful, because freedom is a pair of trousers. We get to meet Remy, and he catches her sneaking around Paris dressed as a man. And he's like, this is good. I'm going to help you pretend to be a man and get into like a gentleman's club. She doesn't even ask. He's like, yes. Gets her like by the shop and is like, you're my bro. I love this.
I loved him. He was nice, but I really loved how we got to see like the gender depression that Addie experiences in this time period. So there's a quote here that I love. The darkness claimed he'd given her freedom, but really there is no such thing for a woman, not in a world where they are bound up inside their clothes and sealed inside their homes, a world where only men are given leave to roam. And that is quite relevant even today, probably to a lesser extent. But, you know, in today's times, the burden's still placed on the woman to make sure that she's the one who's behaving and looking in a particular way to not draw attention to herself, to make a man lose control, and
that she's not walking through a park at night on her own.
Exactly. Make sure you don't wear a skirt too short because you don't want to tempt them.
Oof.
And it's like, fuck, have we really changed that much? Because those themes. So, yeah, I actually really enjoyed that part. I wish it was explored a little bit deeper and we saw like a present day representation of that gender depression. But anywho, I still really enjoyed that juxtaposition there. And I also prefer Remy over Henry until he tried to pay her for sex.
Which, I mean, Addie decides that, like, she decides she's going to sleep with Remy, and they have this whole really cute, like, he walks her home and then she's like, I don't want to say goodbye. So they walk back to his house. I loved that. But then she decides that she's going to imagine that sex with Remy is losing her virginity rather than when she had to sell it to survive. And that was just, right in the heart. But obviously he falls asleep. She doesn't normally stay because she knows what happens. I think she's tracing like a pattern on his back, which I do that all the time. Like my partner will be asleep and I'm just like, la, la, la.
Picasso.
Yeah.
Favorite drawings on his back.
But that wakes him up and he obviously doesn't remember her. So he thinks he's gone rip-roaring drunk and he's taken a prostitute home. So he claims her.
Oh,
gosh, wouldn't that just fucking rip your heart out? Jesus.
Oh. And that's when actually she leaves, and that's when Luke appears and tries to, again, like he appears when she's at her lowest and he makes comments like, you know, I feel when you falter. And he always tries to get her to surrender and hand over her soul, but she's holding out even though she's really not having a good time.
No, she is not.
And then the next part of the story, well, the next note that I have, Henry and Addie, they fuck.
And he goes down on her. And I love his work ethic.
Go, boy, go.
It's like first intimacy and he is like, I know what I need to do. And I'm like, yes, sir.
Yes, you do.
Put in the work, stamp your timesheet before you check out.
He goes down on her, they fuck, go team go. Yay. Then basically she ends up telling her story to Henry. She ends up confiding in Henry, telling him everything that has happened, her whole story from start to finish, which is the first time she's obviously ever been able to do that. So it's hella emotional, and he sat there and listened, and at the end said something about like maybe it not being believable, or if you don't believe me, blah, blah, blah. He's like, no, I do believe you. And she was like, oh, okay. And turns out, oh boy, Henry, old mate, made a deal of his own. Yeah.
He starts laughing and he's like, yeah, I do believe you because I did the same thing. And she's like, I'm sorry. Can we just
what?
freeze this tape? Rewind. What? Henry's backstory, which just, again, like this last read through, Henry just really like broke my heart. We get to hear a little bit about him, and just like the quote I've got is, a boy is born with a broken heart. The doctors go in and piece it back together, but they've left his heart too open and now he feels too much.
So do you reckon he's an empath?
Oh,
is that
yeah.
the vibe we're getting? I mean, that is all over TikTok at the moment. Have you been seeing the comments of people being like, yeah.
I've seen the joke ones.
Yes.
Literally.
Me too. In a literal sense, I do think he is an empath and he's like taking on everyone else's emotions and suffering.
Yeah. His deal is that he wants to be enough and he wants to be loved. He made it when he nearly jumped off the roof after Tabitha said no to him, and he got rip-roaring drunk and he just couldn't stop feeling. We find out that he gets what his sister calls storm clouds, where his depression comes in such big waves, and he just feels way too much. But Addie and Henry are cute, and they're like, oh, thank God, someone, like their deals cancel each other's out. Like Addie can be remembered because that's what she wants from him. She wants to be remembered. So it's not like deep, obsessive love that what other people get when they look at him. But she also has this inkling. He says it's for a lifetime, and she has this inkling that Luke would not make a deal for that long. It's too good a deal.
Yeah.
She doesn't push because she wants to live in bliss.
Yes, I get that. But I also, I don't know, it didn't sit well with me, the comparison between their deals. And I came across this really amazing thread on Reddit, and I just need to share it because it really goes into what I was thinking about. So you've got Addie, who's literally being forced into a marriage and motherhood she didn't want any part of, and she didn't want to lose her freedom and her future, and she's a dreamer. She doesn't want to belong to anyone, and she wants more time. And she was born in the 1600s, so she's born into a time where she's expected to be married and be a mother by the age of 16, and that's just a societal norm. Whereas you've got Henry, who just kind of couldn't handle rejection. I know it's more nuanced than that. He does have mental health issues, and there's a lot more to unpack there, but because I just found him a bit boring, I guess, and a bit whiny, I was a bit taken aback by the whole fact that he threw away his entire life, as we come to find out, on the sake of rejection. And like when you compare it, it's sort of like you've got a young woman forced into a non-consensual marriage to a man with a litter of children overnight who would ruin her life as she knows it, and girl says no to guy's proposal in present day times and he can't handle it. And I just kind of think the comparison there, apples and oranges, perhaps he should have taken a little bit of a nap before deciding to sell his soul to the devil. I don't know. Maybe he would have woken up and felt a little bit better. Maybe he should have had a chat to a therapist. There are options before taking that next step, whereas Addie was completely out of options. But it did make me appreciate Addie even more. On a lighter note, whose curse would you prefer to have?
Ooh, I mean, we're women, so it wouldn't play out the same as it does for Henry. If anyone looked at you and was that like obsessed with you, in love with you, it wouldn't play out the same for us that it does for Henry. So even then, there's that gender comparison.
Yeah, literally.
Oh yeah, and no interaction you'd have would be real.
No.
Oh fuck, I don't know which. I mean, obviously maybe Addie's, but then also you're forgotten.
I feel like if a female had Henry's curse, I feel like it'd be an extreme version of Vanessa and Henry. Like I think it'd be a very extreme, more extreme version than that if it was the other way around.
How many stalkers would you have?
That's exactly what you said, Briony. It would be so different. That's why I would have to go. I don't know.
It's like I don't want to be forgotten.
No,
but
I don't really want to be remembered that much either.
Yeah.
No.
I feel like the only positive to Addie's is being able to see so much and seeing how the world changes and being able to experience everything, even though it would be lonely. You would find so many things.
Yeah, I like being alone. So like maybe then also like I could be alone for maybe like a year, I reckon. And then I'd be like, wait a second. Someone please.
Or can we twist it? Can we have Henry's curse and we travel to America and find Henry Cavill and hook up with him, and then he falls in love with you? Okay, he's in England.
Done.
Right, we're over in England. Hi, do you want to move to an isolated cabin in the woods with me and we never see anyone ever again? I could live with that.
If I could write my cause of death for my tombstone, it would be Henry Cavill's thighs.
Henry Cavill breaking my spine. Oh dear.
We've gone on some weird tangents because of this book. VE, I'm also sorry. She's like, I've written this beautiful story, and then we're just like, Henry Cavill's thighs.
Henry Cavill breaking my spine. No!
The only violent things I really get in this book is when we see the qualities of Luke when he becomes what he actually is. And so there's a flashback she's in France, it's July like 1764, and we see the other side of Luke for the first time. She's like taunting him and he says, you forget yourself, you forget me. And he grabs her wrist. He's like, maybe I made this deal too easy. Maybe I gave you too much youth. And he starts to take it away and she's withering. She's becoming like a withered old crone, and he just leaves her on the ground. And you're like, oh yeah, right.
And that would be the abusive tendencies coming into play.
Just a little bit.
And then like,
waving my red flag.
The next flashback we get where we also see this is he takes Beethoven's soul, which I loved.
That's
the sprinkling of like well-known names.
Yeah.
Like first he takes Addie to this apartment. There's this old man speaking, I think, in whatever, I want to say German. My brain says German. And then he says, you know the deal, like Herr Beethoven. And I was like, well, shit. Uh-oh. And Addie describes it as Luke unfolds. His face basically just comes back, like his hair comes back, and then the void that is left there, but like inside this frame of, I guess, what looks like a human, an unpeeled banana of a human, is like a shadow with teeth. He is night itself. And then Luke just plunges his hand into Beethoven's chest and rips out his soul.
Gives me real like venom vibes.
Like yes, like the yeah. For those that are audio only, I just did a weird like finger shimmy over my face.
She did. It was magnificent. But this is where you get like the first description of Luke moving through the world with Addie, like he's taking her with her to Germany to go reap Beethoven's soul. And she describes it as bird wings beating against her skin in a black void. And I am sorry, as someone with a severe phobia of anything with wings, I cannot imagine wings just beating at you and not being able to see. Like, that is my literal worst nightmare. It gives me shivers just thinking about it. I hate all things with wings unless it is Bat Boys. But I'd be out a bit new.
I think, again, with me being like rose-coloured glasses, blinders on, not seeing the toxicity, that like Luke takes her to the opera and he's watching her watch Wagner's Tristan and Isolde opera, and she, again, that sense of wonder that we've talked about, it's the first time she's seen something like that, and it's, again, he's watching her watch it, and I don't know why, I was just like, I love the bare minimum. And it's the first time, like, they're walking along the streets of Munich afterwards, and it's the first time he doesn't ask her for her soul or to surrender. And they walk together and they talk about all the other deals he's done, which, like, we know Beethoven, but also Joan of Arc.
That's right. What about that?
Which, again, we find out about, it's all about the wording. You got to read the T's and C's, guys.
Literally.
Just to, like, steamroll through as well. We meet Toby again back in real time. Her and Henry are out at like a bar, and he's also getting worse at hiding that something's wrong. Like, they go to a movie and he's like, do you ever feel like time is just running away from you? And she's picking up all these little things where something's not right, but she also doesn't push it. And they go out to a club and Toby is performing the song, which he's finished-ish, and the lyrics are just to rip your heart out. I'm in love with a girl I've never met, but I see her every night, it seems. And I'm so afraid that I'll forget her, even though I've only met her in my dreams. Right in the feels.
This is legitimate, like, because when I was reading on the Kindle, there was like a legitimate copy of the actual lyrics that were actually written, that he actually wrote. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, in the book, they've got the I wonder if I can find it. Oh yeah, like these little bits where, you know, they'll have artwork where it references her. Which is great. And technically that's ruining Henry's birthday, on a side note. But anyways,
I forgot it was his birthday. Oops.
She like runs out, and I mean, then he follows, so then his birthday's ruined.
Oh dear.
Anyways,
all right, flashback. France, December 1899.
We're here.
New Year's Eve. Addie has Addie has decided to spend New Year's a little bit differently this year, and decided she found this little abandoned cottage by the woods, spent by herself with the fire, you know, how everyone I think would love to do it at least once. And then it starts snowing, like heavy ass snow. Wasn't it she had to there was one time it snowed in Valon?
Probably. Sounds likely.
Yeah, and she couldn't play. It got dirty. It wasn't nice. She only found one little patch. Anyway, it's snowing. It's lovely and white, and she loves the fact she goes out, she plays in it, and she doesn't leave a mark, so it stays perfect, and she's absolutely loving it. Anyway, she falls into this very thick bit of snow, basically like up to head height, And she just sits there and she's like, yeah, this is nice.
I'm just imagining her like snow angeling.
Just, I can imagine someone like, you just look out the window and you just see someone like,
and they're like, what the fuck? But then you turn around and you forget them and you turn back and you keep going, what?
You're going, what the fuck? It's like a grown woman like,
I no joke imagine that she fell into this like deep ass hole and all you see is like just a head.
Just the head.
And it's just her just staring up at the snow. Like that's all.
I agree. Like Briony.
So Luke finds her in this position and he's like, the fuck? And then he starts like chatting with her. He's being nice and he's like, I saw an elephant in Paris.
Every time he asks her to surrender, she'll be like, oh, this is a new thing I've seen. And after that, he kind of goes like, it's like insinuated that like I saw an elephant in Paris, which means I was in Paris and you were not. And I thought of you. Another flashback we have where I'm pining over her and like, Luke. She goes back home to Valon and a lot of things haven't changed, but a lot of things have now. And the last thing that hadn't changed was Estelle's tree. And when she goes back, it's gone. She can only see the stump. And for some reason, that just breaks her. She like sits in the rain all day looking at this tree stump. And Luke appears and sits with her in the mud. And I was like, oh my God, he's not clean. Well, he is because he doesn't get wet or dirty. But she's dirty and he's sitting in the dirt with her. So I loved it. And she asks, like, was this you? He just replies, you cannot blame me for every loss. I know I can be cruel, but nature can be crueler. And then he takes her to Paris and they drink port together, which just,
See, she was trying to get me in on that love story. I was there. I was like, bitch, he just needs to turn good. But like, how would he? Literally darkness incarnated. But like, you know what I mean? Like, just turn good, my friend. And it would be a beautiful love story, okay?
VE was writing this for Georgia. He's like, and if you could call on me as I call on you.
Ding dong, motherfucker.
And he gives her back like the ring that she gave originally when she was trying to be like, save me from marriage. And he's like, if you put it on, I'm a come calling and then I'm going to come, but it's fine.
He's like, I want you to miss me.
Yes.
Yeah. We're back in New York in 2014 and it's Addie's 300-year anniversary from her dealio with Luke. So Henry wants to spend the day with her to commemorate. It's sort of like her birthday of sorts. But she's very much of the mindset of like, okay, cool, but he rocks up like every time that this anniversary comes around. So I cannot let him see you because he's going to ruin everything. So we spend the day together.
Last time they saw each other was 30 years ago and there was something that happened that we don't know about yet.
We don't know about yet. We know something happened. But they spend the day together at the beach. They say he tells her that he loves her. And this kind of just sums up all of my feelings for their relationship. So they have this perfect day of canoodling and she's thinking how peaceful and content she is with him. And then she goes, Addie wonders if this is love, this gentle thing, if it's meant to be this soft, this kind, the difference between heat and warmth, passion and contentment. She wants it to be true. And it's like, oh, that doesn't sound like love, does it? And then she goes on to think, if it's not love, it's enough. And that to me sounds like settling.
I was literally about to say that. That's settling, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, in Addie, and technically Henry, but in Addie's defense, she's got two options. One is the devil and one is vanilla slice.
That is a good point.
Potato, potato.
Or technically third option is oblivion. But, you know.
Look, at this point in the journey, I'm not riding on Henry. I'm like full on, Henry Cavill, yes, but not Henry. I just think maybe, I don't think it has anything to do with Henry at all at this point. I think if anyone else had remembered her, that would be enough for her. And I just don't buy their relationship. I don't think they've got chemistry. And yeah, that basically just tied it all up in a neat bow for me. And I'm not really here for them, which is disappointing because I wanted to be.
Yeah, fair. Very fair. Luke only appears at night. He can only appear in the dark. So as it gets towards that, we get some more flashbacks, which we get to see Chicago 1928. Addie and Luke haven't seen each other since he gave her the ring to be able to be like, call on me. Both of them holding out to see who will give in first. And she thinks she wins. And then he's like, you've shown up into a club that I own. But I still think she wins. And again, like on the list of things that made Briony go woohoo and forget about all the toxicity, he says, I promise, Adeline, few are as maddening as you. But I was just like, she pisses you off. I love it.
Yeah, literally.
And he tells her that she isn't human, which, I mean, makes sense. She's 300 years old and hasn't died. So technically, yeah, that makes sense. But again, more things that I probably need to go to therapy about. He says, you move among them like a ghost, his forehead bowing against hers, because you're not one of them. You cannot live like them. You cannot love like them. You cannot belong with them. His mouth hovers over her own, his voice dropping to nothing but a breeze. You belong to me, with me.
Oh, yeah, she does.
The tension.
Again.
And then we go back to real time. And this is where a bunch of us have got our drinks. I say a bunch. It's me and Ellie. We're both drinking champagne because Luke always sends Luke always sends Addie champagne with like a candied rose petal. I couldn't go to that much effort. We got bubbles. That's what you're getting.
So Luke sends her the champagne. And he rocks up going, surprise, hello, it's me again, your friend Luke, loose luck. And he basically just drops Henry's secret that his life's going to end a lot sooner than she thinks. And she's like, oh, fuck, what does that mean? And Henry has to confess to her, like, look, I was in a pretty dark place at the time I made that deal and I wasn't really thinking clearly and I kind of just made it for how long was it? Like a year?
Yeah. Which at that stage, it's only like 3 months.
3 months or something?
Yeah, 3-4 weeks.
Oh, wait, no, I think it's actually a lot less.
Weeks.
I think it's 36
days.
Wow.
And they had that conversation just after midnight, so then it's actually 35.
That's depressing.
That'd be terrifying. And Addie goes, how could you give up so much for so little? And Henry says, in that moment, I would have given it for far less. And again, I ask, sir, please take a nap first before making big life decisions.
Literally.
The nap is important.
The nap is important.
Sleep is important, guys. People can't say that we're not looking after your health. We're telling you to sleep because then you won't make a deal with the devil.
Addie basically takes the bait from Luke and decides that she will spend the night with him to try and get Henry out of his deal.
I would have loved to see some more of Addie's history, especially when she's just, you know, she's in a French-occupied Nazi jail because she's been ferrying secrets to like the French rebellion, like during the war. I would have loved to see more of that, but like
that sounds more interesting to me than dressing up in fancy clothes and going to saloons.
Saloons.
I'm basically just Georgia for this episode, so chuck a blonde wig on me and let's call it a day, because Luke interrupts one of Addie's dates at one stage. Like it's like a flashback to like Los Angeles in like 1952. She's on a date with a sculptor and he interrupts it and it's just tension. I love it. And Addie says, at least he keeps me company. And Luke says, so would I if you wanted it. Again, the bare minimum. I love it. Luke takes her to see Frank Sinatra, which again, I love these little famous cameos.
Yeah.
And they dance. She tries to remember a time when they were this close and can't. They have always kept their distance. Now the space collapses. And she talks about how like the form he's taken is the one she designed. And he's filled in the gaps over time, like, and it's become him, but it's still a body that was made to fit her. So she talks about how like his hand fits her waist perfectly, her cheek fits his shoulder perfectly, and I'm just like, fuck, it's great. And then, you know, Luke just shoots his shot and he's like, I want you. I've always wanted you. And Addie says, you want me as a prize. You want me as a meal or a glass of wine, just another thing to be consumed. And I mean, I don't even argue with this point, but he goes, is that so wrong? Is it such a bad thing to be savoured, to be relished? Fucking gagging. I'm done.
Boosh, darling.
I mean, call me the fucking Wicked Witch of the West because my toes are curling and my legs are clenched. And then they fuck. And I don't blame her. I'd be done.
Fuck yes. Fuck him on every, that's it for me. Fuck.
And like she talks about how like the bedroom is like a war zone because it's just the force of two whatever colliding. I don't know. I'm into it. I'm already invested at this point. I'm like, sign me up. I loved. She's kissed a lot of people, but none of them have ever kissed like him. The difference doesn't lie in the technicalities. His mouth is no better shaped to the task. It's just in the way he uses it.
Fuck absolutely off.
I'm done.
She's trying to convince Luke that he needs to let Henry go. Because, again, is she in love with him? You know, but she's like, no, you need to let him go so he can remember me forever, pretty much. It's low-key, maybe is she being selfish?
Self-preservation. She wants someone to remember her.
Yeah. Yeah,
Look, even though, again, I don't think it's the most epic of love stories, her and Henry, it's more convenience. They both give each other what they want, and, you know, it's fine. I have realistic expectations. I wasn't going into this being like, rip out my heart and give it to Henry. It's fine. But I do think that there was something special there. She wanted to protect this boy from making the same mistake she did, essentially.
Yeah.
And even though she says she'd always make the same decision, I'm like,
And then flashback to New Orleans in 1970. And this is when Luke tells Addie that he loves her. But she's like, no, you fucking don't. So the quote is, Luke goes, tell me your heart doesn't flutter when you hear my voice, that it doesn't ache when you hear your name on my lips. And then Addie goes, it's my own name that I ache for, not your lips.
Oh,
put him in his
love that.
face.
Get him.
I love it. Which again ties into like what you're saying, Ellie. Like it's just, and Claire, actually, you're on a roll. It's not really she wants one thing in life, really. And Henry's giving that to her. It's not necessarily love.
Anyway, so they're back to the date between Luke and Addie. And Luke admits to Addie that he let Henry and her find each other to wear her down and basically get her to be like, okay, I'm all good. Let's come back. Let's go to Luke. And then he says, you're so set upon your need for love, you could not see beyond it. I gave you this, I gave you him, so you could see the love that was not worth the space you held for it, the space you kept from me. And then he ended up keeping Addie away from Henry for a week instead of the one day that he promised.
So cheeky.
Ooh.
Read the terms and conditions. All of us here have a legal background.
It's important.
Telling you. I mean, 3 of us are just like the moral support for the legal background. Ellie's pulling through.
Yeah.
So by the time Addie gets back to Henry, Henry's asked her to stop fighting and to just stay with him, just enjoy the time until his soul gets taken by Luke. And then he says his goodbye to like all his friends. And
I like the sentiment in this book where it says like not a period but an ellipses. It's a statement trailing off until someone is there to pick it up.
This chapter's closed.
Life will go on.
Yeah, I like that sentiment. That makes me happy. I'm going to hold on to that for dear life.
And then they're on the roof waiting for his time to come, waiting for Luke to come and just rip his soul out. And that's when Addie tells him that the story actually isn't over for him. While Henry was sleeping, one night he notices that she snuck out of the bed, but then he went back to sleep and didn't realize she actually left. And she actually snuck out and met Luke and convinced him to bend the terms of the deal. And she's like, do this and I'll be yours as long as you want me to be by your side, which is a key part.
Terms and conditions.
Wedding. And Luke takes the deal. He's like, yes, I've finally gotten her. And Addie gives herself to Luke, and Henry is just out, gone. Dunzo. Well, I mean, he's alive, but like...
He sleeps. He has that nap we've been talking about.
Yes, finally. He has it when it's too late. And then next part is we're seeing things of what Henry does. And Henry's putting Addie's life in a book so everyone will know her name. And he's just like, I remember you.
Oh, that fucking killed me, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, I was like, good job, Henry, doing something with yourself.
Yeah.
Finally. This book, it something that I touched on so well was how stories are held within art, and then how art in turn lasts throughout all points in history, and how it can be looked upon in years and years to come, and what it was initially set out to mean could mean something totally different in 50, 100 years' time, but it's still the same piece of artwork. I don't know. All the views can be totally unique, and I just felt it really deeply in my soul. Like, it was very inspiring to me. But yeah, I just loved it. I love that referencing in the book. It was everything for me. So
I think that's maybe one of the reasons I love this book so much, is I'm like, oh yes, amazing. After all of that, Henry writes the book and it's open-ended. Like, his friend is going, oh my God, but what happens? She goes with luck, and he's left it open-ended, like the story kind of is. And then we see Addie looking at the book sell off the shelves and people asking for her name, and she's like, oh yeah. And there's this moment where she's looking at a bookshelf, and then Luke comes up behind her and he says this whole thing like, doesn't matter that the world has her story as long as he has her. And she goes, well, aren't you fucking stupid? Because he didn't read the T's and C's.
He did not read the terms and conditions.
No, he did not. And the quote that I was like, yes, bit, that he has made a grand mistake, that the devil is in the details, and he has overlooked a crucial one. When she traded her soul for herself, she did not say forever, but as long as you want me by your side. And those are not the same at all.
Fuck yeah.
So two can play this game.
So as we've discussed, Addie basically has saved Henry by choosing to stay with Luke for as long as he wants her. And we discover she fully intends on ensuring he does not want her, because she's going to make his life a living hell, which is funny because he's a devil. Anywho, I quite enjoy the fact that she didn't end up with either Henry or Luke. I mean, she did choose to be with Luke by the end of it, but by having the revengey type plot turn, it kept it from feeling a bit too Stockholmy, because, like, as we've discussed, he's been a bit abusive throughout this book with what he does to her.
Yes.
So I'm glad she didn't just fall head over heels in love with him and just run it off into the sunset with him. But
she
then
does also have those thoughts where she's like, this isn't love.
Exactly right. Like, I've been telling myself over and over and over again, don't fall in love with him because he's not a man. But then a part of me also wanted better for her as well. Like, I kind of wish she would have just surrendered and had her peace now that her story has been told. But then, you know, like, I kind of guess that maybe Henry served as a bit of a catalyst for her. So now she can move on with a new strategy on how to defeat Luke, because the whole thing has just been like a battle of wills and a cat and mouse game between them both for the entire book. And I know that I mentioned that I felt that Addie didn't have a lot of character development for someone who's been alive for 300 years. But now I'm thinking that's what VE intended. Like, maybe after helping Henry survive and he becomes this catalyst for her, she's got the book published, her name's out there, her story's out there. She now can become interesting. Like, she can now go explore. She's basically confirmed that her humanity, like what Luke's been trying to tell her the whole time, is non-existent. Like, she's immortal. She's closer to him than she is a human. And now, you know, she can get interesting, and she just will accept things rather than trying to be like the normal human girl like she's been trying to be for the past 300 years. So I quite like the ending, because you could take it either way. And
I loved the ending. I was obsessed with the ending. And I know, I want to say I know, but I'm fairly confident there's room for error. I'm fairly confident it's a one-off story. We won't get another Addie Larue book. George's dog, for those that have George's dog Zeus is just here for, he's like, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, he's in on it.
Agree.
He's like, there's been too many cat references in this episode and you need some dog content.
We do, don't we, buddy?
He's such a sweet boy. I'm fairly confident there will not be a sequel, but it would be really cool to see a sequel where you have her trying to take Luke down while also getting more of the nitty-gritty of her history. I feel like this was a real, if VE decided to one day do a follow-up book, it'd be cool to see Addie try and take Luke down and almost take his place as the person that can offer the deals, as someone that's had one, has had all this time to appreciate, and also get a bit more of a gritty approach to her life and what she's done. And I don't doubt that she's done a fucking lot.
Yeah,
but
find out more of the nitty-gritty details.
I feel like I'd enjoy that more than the first book
me too.
It
kind of makes me feel like with ACOTAR, like book 1 serves its purpose, but book 2 is my favorite.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Well, I guess like to summarize, I have like a little summary statement here, which I feel like is pretty accurate about how it made me feel anyway. So I said, this book made me crave freedom, remembrance, but also made me thrive in the way that being a human feels, because that's just it. We feel things and we remember things, each other, the world, and it truly makes you want to grab life by the dick and make it your bitch. Thank you.
Yes,
By that.
So what time is it, Ellie?
Guys,
Favorite time of the week.
it's your favorite time. It's a Tay-Tay reference time. And I am committing to you all. I've set this challenge for myself. No one asked me to do this. I've taken it upon myself. But I will give you a Taylor Swift reference for every book we do on this podcast. That is my commitment to you.
Will there come a point where there is no longer any more songs? Or
The limit does not exist.
The limit does not exist.
I also think there's definitely crossovers. Like you can rehash songs.
True, you can.
You can. They can be applied in different ways. I've got 2 potential winners here.
No.
First of all, Right Where You Left Me, which I haven't heard a lot of this song until I did my digging and I have found it. So I reckon this is more related to Addie and Luke, with Addie always being right where Luke left her. The lyrics are: friends break up, friends get married, strangers get born, strangers get buried, trends change, rumors fly through new skies, but I'm right where you left me, which makes sense. It tracks. Then, did you ever hear about the girl who got frozen? Time went on for everybody else. She won't know it. She's still 23 inside her fantasy, how it was supposed to be.
Addie's literally 23.
That's literally Addie.
I know.
Oh my God, Taylor.
So, next song, Ivy. The lyrics go: how's one to know I'd meet you where the spirit meets the bone, in a faith-forgotten land. And that just brings up memories of her meeting Luke for the first time in the woods.
Yeah, true.
Then, your touch brought forth an incandescent glow, tarnished but so grand. That reminded me of Luke taking the soul of Beethoven.
Yeah.
Just like it glows in his hand.
Yeah.
And then I like this one. I just sit here and wait, grieving for the living, because I feel like that's what she'd do as in being immortal. She would do that. And then, my pain fits in the palm of your freezing hand, taking mine, but it's been promised to another. Now, you can either take that as her relationship with Henry, while she's constantly like enamored by Luke, or it's about Luke and the constant references in the book about them fitting together perfectly.
You're on it, mate.
I am. I know. This is what the people want. I'm just.
This is the only reason we have subscribers, listeners, viewers, whatever.
Basically, it's just the only reason I committed to this podcast, because I needed to talk about Taylor Swift. Anyway, I wished to know the fatal flaw that makes you long to be magnificently cursed. He's in the room, your opal eyes are all I wish to see. He wants what's only yours. Magnificently cursed? I mean, if that's not Henry, I don't know what is. So anyway, that is all for this week. Tune in for next week's episode of Ellie talking about Taylor Swift.
Ellie Taylor Swift references.
Look, that's the only reason we're basically here.
Look, guys,
well,
we've got a lot of content.
I love it. I'm here for the content. Well, I have channeled Georgia and I have sent in our girl group chat, which again, we will share on our Instagram story, the fan art that I have found about this book. So the first one, love me some painterly work. And that is the Patricia, I'm going to fuck up this surname. I'm so sorry. I want to say Gutierrez. It's like guitar, but with a res on the end. And it's Addie and Luke. And like Addie is in like her white dress. She's holding like the ring on the chain and he's all in shadow. And I love it. I'm obsessed. It's great. Other fan art that I love is one of possibly my favorite artists is Rosie Thorns 88 on Instagram. And she did this beautiful work of there's Luke, Addie and Henry. And there's like a bird cage scenario, which it's just Henry looking defeated as fuck. Addie's wearing her cool leather jacket and she's on a little like seedy thing. It's kind of bird cage. There's the 7 stars, like a freckles. Zeus is supporting our cause. Oh, no. And the last one is one of my favourite artists, which if you are looking for not safe for work fan art, this is your gal. She's got it. Her name is Lilith Saw, like Bulbasaur. Add Lilith. And she's done this beautiful artwork of Addie and Luke, and there's a purple background and it's just gorgeous. But she does a lot of Jules and Carden and Alina and the Darkling not safe for work artwork, as well as a lot of Star Wars, if that's your vibe. Yeah, I'm just going to say, look, she knows what she's doing.
We don't mind it.
I'll check it out.
Don't mind it at all. I'm not a huge, I like Star Wars, but, you know, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan. I can be.
I will mold myself to that.
I can work with that.
I love all the artworks that you sent. They're beautiful.
So if you've got any other artwork that you like about, just in general, I mean, when we're recording this episode, we've got our socials up, guys. We've got our socials. I'm so excited. If you want to watch the video of us being very interesting people, it's going to be on YouTube. I mean, you can listen to the podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. If you want to see our posts or investigate us as humans, Instagram is probably your go-to. But we're also going to set up, we've got our link tree so you can find all of the helpful hints. Please follow us.
We're here. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Is that the thing that people say?
I think that's what people say. That sounds likely.
Leave a comment down below.
Only nice stuff because they're fragile.
But if you're mean, I'm going to block and delete the shit. And
I mean, if we get one more comment where it promote this on blah, blah, blah. But please, if you share us, if you tag us, we will respond. We will share you. We love the engagement. It gives our souls joy.
Oh, yes. And epic TikTok content coming the way. We are learning dances. We're doing all the things.
Okay, so that's it, guys. That's pretty much it, y'all.
That's the Invisible Life of Addie Larue. You'll be doing some other solo books. Solo? I'm sorry.
Solo.
Yeah, fucking ready.
Briony on champagne.
This is my fucking book. This is my fucking book.
If you thought I talked a lot this episode, this was my book. I'm a big fan. If you thought I talked a lot, wait.
It's so exciting, guys.
It's very exciting. This author that we're going into is my favourite author. She's amazing and I can't wait for you guys to read it. And then we've got another solo book after that, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, and if you have any book recommendation, just send them in the comments.
We want to talk to you. We want the validation.
Yes. Anyway, yes, that's it. We will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.